call the meeting to order. Let me get a second.
Second. Stephen Moan seconds
Steve.
it.
Yeah. And I'll start with doing the roll call. Do we have Mr. Murray? No, Mr. Murray?
Mike, I don't think we're at quorum yet. There's Sinkowski.
Sinkowski, no W.
Sinkowski, sorry.
No moo.
Yeah, let's see who else we have here, and we'll see if we have a quorum or not. So, Brian Kelly? I thought Brian was going to be on. Does anyone have his number they can text him?
I got it.
Yeah. How about Howie? No Howie? We definitely have Dave Friedman, Dave Sinkowski, Craig. I think I saw Craig on.
Yep.
Craig's
Hey, Craig.
Hi.
How about Tucker? No Tucker.
Stephen Moan has a computer.
He does. Mr. Guard, I believe, is here.
Yep. Muted, but yes.
That's a yes, yeah. Dave Haley. Yeah, I don't believe Dave's here. Stephen Moan is here. Guest attendee Mike DeMeo.
I'm here.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
All right.
And Maura, I don't believe is going to be here. We have Alicia, and how about Andrew Gallagher from Conservation?
Yep, I'm here, Mike.
You are. Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So we are missing a few. Let's see if we can.
I think we're at 5, so we're good.
Yeah, we're good, right? Yeah. Okay. So we'll get the meeting called to order. We got, Alicia, were you able to capture all that?
Yes. Do you know who this number is ending in 361? Do I let them in?
You can let them in, and it's a public meeting. If there's ever a problem, we can always mute someone if there's too much going on. So,
Mike, do they do a sign-in sheet on these? I know that we're on there, but the numbers don't tell us who they are. Is there like if we were at a meeting, there'd be a sign-in sheet. Do they do that on the Zoom meetings?
So not that I know of, Dave. I think what we do is we always record kind of the members of Waterways, and Alicia catches all that, but we don't really catch anyone else that may attend the meeting unless they speak, and then she's catching it as part of the minute. So, All right. So we called the meeting to order, and I think we need to do a roll call vote on calling the meeting to order now that we know that we have a quorum. So, just going to go through the list again. Dave Friedman.
Yep.
Sinkowski.
Here.
Craig.
Yeah.
Tucker's not here. Dave Haley. Steve Moan.
Here.
And myself, aye. So
there's Kelly too. Kelly just showed.
Oh, is he here? Great. Thank you. All right, so a couple things as we get started here. Weather's getting better. We're kind of getting close to the beginning of the season. I'm sure everyone's pretty happy about that. We're getting a lot more daylight here each day. I think by next month's meeting, it could be sunlight still when we actually start our meeting, which would be nice. So, and looking forward to the days where we can get back and meet in person. So, other quick little side notes is we were contacted by Maura Glancy from the rec department, and they were looking for a sales director for the sailing program. And they've since emailed us and said that they've actually gotten a person for that that's coming on board now. And as soon as that person's on board, they'd like to introduce them at one of our upcoming waterways meetings, so that they're in sync with who the team is on waterways, and I'm sure Stephen Moen and team too. So, and other update was we had advisory meeting. I want to say it was last week. Advisory. We were on advisory to review the bylaw changes, and we did that. And I think everything's all set there. So the next step with the bylaw changes is really for town meeting. So when that comes up, those are just a couple updates. Can we get a motion to accept the agenda, or I'll make a motion to accept the agenda? Can I get a second?
Second, Stephen Moen.
Thank you. I think we need to do a roll call vote even on that, if I'm not mistaken. So same thing, Brian Kelly?
Here.
You an aye on that for acceptance of the agenda?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And Dave Friedman?
Aye.
Dave Sinkowski?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
And Stephen Moen?
Aye.
And myself is an aye, and I think that's all that's here. So
Rick Murray, aye.
Oh, Rick, how are you?
Good. Sorry, I was 2 minutes late.
No problem. Glad you could join.
Yep.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is acceptance of the meetings from February. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes, and how were they?
Great as usual.
Yep.
Any issues or problems? We good? We're good?
Good.
Okay. Going to make a motion to accept the minutes, and then once again we have to do the roll call on that. Roll call vote. Get a second?
Second.
I think that was Brian. And Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Is that an aye? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Brian Kelly?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Mr. Sinkowski?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye. Oh, I wasn't here, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you abstain, and it's an aye for me as well. All right. So with that, first up on the agenda is Stephen for the update on the boat.
Boat has been delivered. It's at Scituate Maritime Center. I was able to get Journey's End Marina and boat transport to bring it down from Maine. They are up in Maine. They transport boats for Hinckley, Back Cove, and some other bigger manufacturers up in Maine. They gave me an excellent price of $3,200, and they brought it down, and they set it up on the stands over at the Maritime Center with the help of Boatworks. Since then, the antenna mast and the radar mast has been mounted and installed on the boat. We had the boat washed because it had a lot of road grime. It came down the day of the snowstorm, so it was covered with road salt and just grime. So we've had the boat washed, and since then we've had the fire pump was put in the back cockpit along with the fire pump box, and then we had the boat shrink wrapped, and that's to keep debris out of the boat and allow for a workspace for the guys that are doing the install on the fire pump. So went along very well. They were able to put the town of Scituate, on their insurance as an additional insured, which was a requirement by the town. So everything worked out very well.
It's good. It's a good update. So any questions from anyone on the board on that, or the public? Okay, well, it's good. So future meetings, I'll probably take that off the agenda now that it's kind of here and it's getting ready for the water, and just let us know, I guess, when it goes in. So
Eric, I spoke to John Murphy today, and he's expecting to have the pump ready up and operating by the end of the month. And then we would launch, once that's done, we'd launch the boat.
Okay. Great. How about the Marina piling project?
I have good news. As you've all probably seen, piles are being driven. I think they're up to about 9 or 10 piles. So this week they mobilized the crane barge last week to the site. This week they loaded new piles and floating docks onto the crane barge. They've since installed the 2 new floats for the mains. They put all the mains together. Those were pinned down with the pilings. Then they moved to the pump out section of the marina, and that's the section of the marina that has to be at that 54-foot distance between the 2 marinas. We wanted to make sure that that was correct. We didn't want to have any issues there. And from then on, they have been putting the hoops on, driving the piles. Everything's moving along very well. They've towed the T section of the marina over. They installed that, and they started, I believe there's 1 or 2 piles holding that in place as of this afternoon. And they're going to continue to move docks and floats, and they've started removing some of the chain and stone that was holding the marina in place, as they need to get it out of the way. And it's also one of the requirements by the Army Corps and DMF and DEP is to get the old chain and stone system out of the water. The main pier that you'd walk out onto to get down to the gangway, they've cut the part that connects to the seawall. They've removed that section that goes out to the first set of piles, and they have a temporary gangway in place for that so that they can walk out, but they wanted to get that section out so they can work on the riprap. A excavator moved in today. They moved the big crane out of the way this afternoon, and they'll put the excavator in and start working on the riprap right where the new gangway is going to mount. They are on schedule and they are on budget.
Oh, that's good.
Anybody have any questions?
Looks great.
Well, that's good, Stephen. So on this, we had schedules and milestones. So it appears that everything is on schedule per the schedule that they have.
Yes, it's right on schedule.
Yeah. All right. And can you get a copy? If you get it to me, I'll get it out to the board, because that was something that was requested as a copy of the schedule. So.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the only other item we had on there regarding this project was additional pilings.
There, just so everybody knows, there are no additional pilings as of right now, but there's a possibility that there may be 5 additional pilings that aren't necessarily needed at Cole Parkway. And in the original contract, they would be optional. So if we do not use them, there'd be a credit, or not a credit, but we would not have to pay for them or pay for the installation. At the end of the season this year, we had a dock break. About 2 years ago, we had a dock break at Howie's dock. It broke. We thought it might have been just a manufacturer's defect, and it just kind of let go because we, over at the Marina, I've been here coming up on the, I'm in the middle of my 5th year. And I don't think we haven't had any failures other than Howie's up until September. We did have a dock breakthrough there was a microburst on B dock. One of the boats broke one of the dock sections. So we were already in contract. We really don't have any additional funds. So there wasn't much we could do about it anyways. There just wasn't any funding for it. But there's been just some discussion recently that they may or may not need those 5 additional pilings, depending on how much penetration they get for the pilings that are going in. And so it was engineered for the 5 additional if they couldn't get the proper penetration. They're hoping that they will get the proper penetration. And if that's the case, then those 5 pilings could be available to us. I have since instructed GEI to request a minor modification with the Army Corps, DEP, and Conservation. And we're waiting to hear back on that. If that is the case, then if the pilings are available, we could install them. If not, then we could potentially install them in the future if somebody's working in the harbor doing piling work.
That's good.
So we're just waiting
on that.
Yeah, we're waiting on the agencies, but it would be considered a minor modification.
Right. Mm-hmm. Any questions from the board?
And Stephen, these are going to go at the end of the Maritime Center docks, right?
No, right now they're scheduled to go at Cole Parkway,
right,
in the corner near the Lobstermen's Association. If they don't need them, because we're still not sure whether they need them or don't need them.
Right.
If they don't need them and we get permitting approved, because it may or may not get approved. It's up to DEP, it's up to the Army Corps, and it's up to Conservation. They'd all have to sign off on it. But if they aren't being used at Cole Parkway and we do get the permits, then the intent is to put those 5 additional pilings at the ends of the docks on A and B and C dock on the outermost fingers to hold the fingers in place.
Right.
So yes, at the Marine Park if they're not used at the Cole Parkway, they'll be used at the Marine
and we
Park.
get the permits. Yep.
Yeah.
If we get the permits.
Right.
Yeah.
The likelihood that we'll get the permits and be able to install without impacting the opening of the Maritime Center.
What? I'm sorry.
Yeah, my internet connection seems to be a little flaky. I apologize if there's a transmission issue. The intention is to do this and still open the Maritime Center on by May 15th, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
If everything goes, like I said, if we don't need them and we get the permits in place, they would be installed as long as the crane barge and pile driver are still in the harbor. Whether, it be on, whatever day everything gets approved, it would, they would install them and there would be we'd get charged for them, but we'd still be within contract.
And Stephen, is there a plan if one becomes unnecessary or 2 become unnecessary? Is it all of them become unnecessary, or
No,
none of them are unnecessary?
If 2 became unnecessary, then we'd install 2.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's a plan for that. Good.
But we'd still be permitted for the other ones.
Right.
To do it a different day, yeah.
Stephen, based upon our experiences over Cole Parkway, and do you anticipate that we'll be able to turn pretty quickly on getting these permits and the minor modification approvals? Or is that something we should do ahead of time?
Well, it really didn't even truly become part of the project until they started talking about the potential of not needing them or not using them. It just wasn't part of it. So when it became part of it, that's when we started, I started having the discussion with GEI about how to go about it. I had let Mike Gibbons know last month before the meeting, and I instructed GEI to get the permitting in place. So we're trying to do it,
Got it. So it's a process. I understand now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep, you're welcome. Anyone else from the committee or from the audience that has any questions before we move along? Okay, I don't see any hands up, so I am going to, we had one other item. So last month it was asked, I think it was Mr. Sikowski asked you to add river updates to the Harbor Master report each month, Stephen. So we put it on the list here, not necessarily for any updates you may or may not have, but just to kind of keep that on there for your Harbor Master report for any updates on the river. And I'll let Mr. Sinkowski kind of elaborate on kind of what he was looking for. So
Yeah, it's not much more than what you just said, but what we talked about last month was the importance of the river, and that it's usually one of our bigger challenges or active conversations. And if we kept it on a monthly cadence, it would be a good idea. Instead, it seems to come up when there's a challenge or someone has a concern.
So I doubt that you have much of any updates this time of year on the river, Stephen, but that's kind of a placeholder in case when you get to next month, we'll have that on there continuing on. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So that's it for the Harbor Masters report. Nothing else
Mike,
you have, Stephen?
Mike,
right?
I have one quick question for Stephen.
Yep.
We've had various spells of pretty cold weather. Any use of the de-icers this winter so far, or what's the usage been?
We did. We went over, and if there was some skim ice, we'd go over and exercise them. But they weren't as needed this year because it wasn't as heavy ice as it has been in the past. We've been pretty lucky.
Yeah.
But we go over and turn them on to exercise them.
Thanks.
All right, great. If no one else has anything more, we'll move on to old business. And the topic that we left on here was comprehensive dredge permits. So just to kind of recap, as we had the comprehensive dredge permits had gone out, an RFP had gone out, the pricing had come in much higher than anticipated. It was asked by the board last month, I believe it was Howie, asked us to kind of relook at that, and he wanted to know why specifically we would walk away from having the comprehensive dredge permit after putting so much work into kind of putting the process in place to try to get one. So what I did is, per our conversation, I invited Mr. DeMayo to talk about that along with Stephen, and just talk about dredge permits in general, and just what the benefits of having a comprehensive one, or if there is much benefit anymore. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike DeMayo and solicit his opinion.
So you want me to default to Stephen first? Because I know Steve did some work on the comprehensive permit, or I can jump in here, give you my optics on it, if that's what you wish.
Yeah, I can start if you'd like, Mike.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
So I put together the RFP for the comprehensive dredge permit. I had reached out to a consultant that does dredge permits and asked for a budgetary number just so I could have an idea of what we needed for funding. And that number isn't even close to, I don't know where he got the number from, but it's not even close to even what his company put in for a bid. So the cost of it was quite a bit more than we had anticipated, or that I was kind of led to believe it would be. The second issue with the comprehensive dredge permit, there were comprehensive dredge permits were being issued by the Army Corps and other agencies. They were 10-year permits. Since we started this, I've been, I work still pretty closely with, the guys, the harbor masters down on the Cape and other areas. The Army Corps is now getting away from a 10-year permit. They're no longer really interested in issuing the 10-year permits. I'm sure they still may possibly make exceptions, but I do not believe that they're issuing them. And that's what I've been told by some of the consultants and by some of the other harbor masters. So to spend a substantial amount of money for and only get a 5-year permit that you can only potentially extend for another 5 years would only give you about 10 years to get the dredging done in these larger areas. And I just don't think that, we're in a position right now to kind of think that far out and, commit to spending that kind of money. So I think we should relook at it and put it, I've been working on the RFP again to put it back out to bid, and it would be for the inner harbor and the Maritime Center, because the Maritime Center's got some permitting still in place. So they just kind of move it in as one lump, but it would be bid out as 2 separate sections. And since then, well, the South River was going to be part of this as well, potentially. I have actually submitted to conservation the extension of the South River permits, and I received today the letter from conservation, and I'm having it recorded that we have permit, the order of conditions till 7/26/2026 for the South River Dredge project, which is great news.
No, that's good.
Mike, do you have any experience with the comprehensive dredge permits, or have you heard similar, that the Army Corps is getting away from it?
So, not exclusive to the Army Corps. I know we talked about it a little bit. Like, to Steve's credit, it's good initiative to try to save the town dollar to do a comprehensive dredge permit. But the problem is, we're not like Cape Cod where we're all just pumping sand hydraulically. Like, the material in the South River is suitable for beach nourishment. It's also suitable to go to the mass-based disposal site. The material in Scituate Harbor is probably not likely to go onto a beach. So it requires a water quality cert. It may require a chemical analysis, the 401 water quality cert, or a biological test. So when you get into comprehensive dredge permits, you're not factoring in all those different areas, and you're not going to get one permit. One permit doesn't suit all. It's not like a house permit where you get a house to build a garage, kitchen, bathroom, new roof, everything. I mean, we're not very fortunate in our areas that all of our areas can go onto a beach with grain size analysis and things like that. So it kind of doesn't work for us, unfortunately. I wish it did. It'd be a good savings. I think the towns have done a great job of Marshall City working together. South River. Steve's also talked about the North River as well. Obviously, Marshall is interested in that. Furthermore, Marshall is very interested in finishing off the dredging in the South River right now. Steve mentioned he extended his Concom permits for South River. I did that as well, so we're both covered on that. However, the DEP permit, I think, expires 2023 and the Army Corps 2025.
That's correct. Yes.
But we both do have that document of when those permits expire. To get the river dredge in the South River was over 10 years of work dating back to Mark Patterson at the initial shoaling. I will say it publicly right now. I think we're going to have a lot of problems in the mouth of the South River come the spring and summer. I was in there in July at high tide doing water samples for marine fisheries. I'm sure Dave thought he was happy for that. However, the shoaling still exists. The Coast Guard was there last summer and moved some buoys for us, but we can't just keep moving and dragging buoys around left and right. And the town can't really, the town can, but the town wishes, well, the harbor masters wish to add private ACE navigations. The town's on the hook liability wise. And you can sit there and you know the people operating the rivers, some are experienced, some are not. And based on last year's showing of the South River, it really shifted towards the Fourth Cliff area and really scoured out and left a pretty good shoal where we dredged back in that July, August. The South River dredge permits were broken down into 3 areas, area A, B, and C. We were able to get all of A done successfully, and we got into area B. We were doing really well in area B, which is around the corner by Truant's Island into that deep cut there. And then the dredge captain decided to get married and take 10 days off. And then the Army Corps wanted that contract in Plymouth Harbor for October 1st to finish off phase 2 of Plymouth Harbor. So the town's kind of got a raw deal, and we really didn't get as far as we would like to. So that's kind of where we're at. So the towns, both towns do currently have permits to dredge right down to the C Street Bridge. We could dredge there probably July 1st if you wanted to. I know there's the grant just came out again that we got last time through MassWorks. The grant is out. It's due May 1st. I will say publicly Mansfield is committed to finishing off the South River once and for all for the next 10, 15 years. I know the ball's in your court. I know Scituate Harbor has to be dredged. The Maritime Center has to be dredged. It's no different than Green Harbor. We are looking to dredge the whole entire harbor, Green Harbor, in 2022, the Army Corps. And the town's also looking to look for $400,000 to dredge along the piers in Mansfield as well. Furthermore, we're working on a $10 million pier project now in Green Harbor. So Mansfield is investing a lot into its commercial fleet in Green Harbor. However, we don't want to be short-sighted and forget about the South River. Personally, I feel it's something that your commission should look at and consider it. I'm a town resident. I do pay a harbor use fee. I'm in the Herring River, the South River. I think if we finish this for the next 10, 15 years, we'll never have to talk about this in our lifetime, I think, hopefully. But based on what we paid last time, each town kicked in $250,000 and the state gave us a grant of $555,000. I think it's a great deal for both towns paying 25% for what we got. Dredging's the necessary evil. We're always going to have to dredge. Like you guys have your harbor, we have our harbor to dredge. But I really would like to have the discussion with our waterways and our town boards to maybe finish off the South River at some point over the next couple of years, if not this year, maybe next year, and just finish it off. We have the surveys. The whole entire river does not have to be dredged. There are certain shoaling areas that need to be done, definitely down by the bridge. Obviously, it would benefit the 2 marinas right by the C Street Bridge. If they're intending to dredge, if the town dredges, then you kind of reduce all the slumping issues of us dredging down to 7 feet, and they dredge the following year. So what we just dug out and paid for, it's slumping back into the channel, which really doesn't work. So it's kind of like shoveling half your driveway, not shoveling the rest. But I think we've come a long way with Marshall and Scituate with the working together on a myriad of issues as well. Rivers, police, fire, and sharing patrol. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thanks.
Any questions from the board on what Mike or Stephen had to say?
Just one from Dave here, Dave Sinkowski. Sure. You mentioned a lot of this, I forgot the wording you used, shoaled back in. Is it going to happen again? You mentioned it'd be good for 15 years, but if we, the entrance of the South River, if it's filling in again, will it happen again in another 3 years? I'm just thinking out loud here.
I can't say yes or no on that, Dave. The problem is you have two competing sources. You have the North River fighting against the South River, and unfortunately, one river wins with current and the amount of flow coming out of one. It's also due to storms. It hasn't been dredged in many, many years since the barge flipped over in 2006. So it was shallow for a number of years. Definitely dredging it 2 times in 3 years would definitely help. If you look at Chatham bars, they're moving buoys on a weekly basis. So luckily we're not at that stage. So, and the North River has held pretty well, but the North River is obviously stronger than the South River. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I know nothing in this area, but it seemed like we're going to have this conversation every 3 years, and that's just part of life in Scituate.
Right. I get that. And even years ago, I went to the Army Corps to even try to have the entrance channel into the new inlet identified as a federal navigation project. And I pretty much got laughed at because even Stephen, we looked at the survey data because when we started this project of dredging the South River, we surveyed from the new inlet junction buoy pretty much right down to the junction buoy into the North and South Rivers. And what we found was there was some good water, but not where the buoys were. And we went to the Coast Guard 8-ton team, and they actually moved some of those buoys into better water, which technically saved us some money. But the entrance or the confluence of the North and South Rivers are probably the number 2 or 3 dangerous inlet in Massachusetts behind Merrimack River and Chatham Bars Inlet. I would venture to say that we're number 2. It's nasty there. And unfortunately, it causes showing. It falls down to local knowledge of boaters. But with the amount of boaters last year, the uptick of boaters last year and the inexperience of them, people are going to go around. We get that. We had public safety boats go around there. It's just something you have to deal with. But if we're able to correct a problem for 25% versus 100%, I think I'm in.
Well, just one last comment. I'll turn it over to someone else. I just remind the board, as I do every month, that the entrance of the Herring River is not navigable at low tide. So that's, to me, I think we agree it's a safety issue. If you have a fire up there or someone needs to respond, you better have a Zodiac because you're not going to get through that entrance.
And you probably won't get in the South River either, Dave, at low tide, potentially.
So not to get all horribly into the science of it, but the Herring River is controlled by North River flow and a couple other things up in that side of stuff. The confluence of the North and South Rivers is really also going to be controlled by the preceding winter, how much the Northeasters come in and remove or move all the material sort of between the Spit and Third Cliff. And the other controlling factor is the erosion rate of Fourth Cliff itself, which has certainly accelerated since the barriers are coming down, because those are the sediment sources. So, Mike or nobody else is going to be able to predict, we dredge now, how long it's going to last, other than saying that it's just going to be a continual thing because sediment erodes, sediment rolls around, and the tides come and storms come. It's just sort of part of the nature of what we're doing. And I'd also like to say hi to Bill Donovan. Bill, nice to see you out there.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
Good.
I have a question in response to Harbor Master DeMayo's comments for Stephen. Are we aggressively pursuing this new grant?
Steve, you're on mute.
Waterways would need to decide, or this committee would need to decide if they want to spend, put in a capital project for $250,000 to finish dredging the South River. So that's the big question. It's kind of up to Waterways to decide what they'd like to do. Personally, I'd love to see the South River get dredged, but I think we have, a lot of things going on inside Scituate Inner Harbor, over at the Maritime Center and over at the Lobstermen's Association dock, where it's getting really shallow over there. Right now, you can get up and down the South River. Like I said, I'd love to be able to dredge both places. But I am, as I always do, I'm going to abstain from the vote and allow the commission to decide.
Are these dredging permits specific to the rivers? Is there a possibility of getting one for the harbor?
You can always apply for dredge permits. We have permits in hand right now for the South River. They're all done, and we could use them right away. It's funding that you need. The state would give us half, a quarter, 25% would come from Scituate, 250,000. 250,000 would come from Marshfield, and the 500,000 would come from the state.
I understand.
So I've got a question for Mr. DeMeo. So do we think we have a pretty good idea what the amount is, the dollar-wise, that's going to be required to do? So I guess it's the rest of B and C. It's already all permitted, but the cost for the dredging of it itself, I guess.
I think based on what we dredged last time, Mike, about some 11,000 cubic yards of area A and probably 4,000 from area B. That's probably equally what is left in the South River as far as B and C. It's actually easier material to dredge because it's not as hard packed as what it was at the mouth. So, I mean, it's all suitable for beach nourishment. And this is the fight we had years ago when we tried to get the easements from Hamrock Beach to put it on the beach because it would have been much cheaper to put it right on Hamrock Beach, but you can't use public tax dollars to put it on a private beach without the private homeowner signing an easement for people to walk in front of them. That would save us a lot of time and money, and that's why we had to take it offshore time. So, but like Stephen said, the permits are in hand. I mean, the only grant that you don't get is the grant that you don't put in for. I do think we're in this this is a regional approach to dredging 2 towns, which is a plus. And we also have permits in hand, and they know the necessity of finishing this project off. Essentially, I think we go as far as $1 million takes us, and we hope that it works. And there's no guarantee with showing and storms, like Mr. Murray said. In Green Harbor, we dredge almost every year at the Narrows in the channel. Luckily, the Army Corps pays for that. We're looking to dredge the whole entire harbor in 2022, which we dredged 10 years ago. So we're back at it again. So, I mean, the town of Marshfield has some financial, constraints as well. But, talking with my town administrator, I won't speak to him directly, but, Marshfield is committed to finishing off the project we started. This project started over 10 years ago. And I would hate to have these permits expire and start all over again at ground zero. My main concern is, it's only March, and March can be a lion or a lamb, and we're not going to really know what we have as far as showing out there until we get to April and kind of get a new survey done or some aerial flights to see what we have. So, but it's an issue. It's public safety, obviously. It's public safety for everybody. We're not the only towns that have problems with shoaling, but I will say we do have permits and we are sharing the cost, which a lot of towns can't say that.
So just to kind of recap on that. So I think you're saying you would ask for $1 million, right? Scituate share would be 250, Marshfield share would be 250. The rest of it would be the grant itself, right?
Right. And you can go for more, but I'm pretty confident that $1 million would cover it. I think we would go as far as we could. I mean, it's, and if you ran into areas that were a +5 or a +6, we would probably want to get right down to the bridge and dredge exactly what we could. Like I said, if we could only afford $1 million to get the +5 versus +6 or +7 to over a dredge, then that's what we would do. We would back out of the water depth. So basically at mean low water, you would have 5 feet minimum all the way through the channel. If we had the extra money, you could do a bid alternate, and we could say, hey, we want to go to a 5+1, which is -6 feet, mean low water, and then get down to the bridge. So we would go as far as the money would take us, but we would get the most bang for our buck. Now, like last time we got pretty lucky because we dredged in July. I would not recommend dredging this part of the river in July. We did a good job last time with traffic and security zones, but taking the barges through the mouth in July and August, I don't think that's going to work for us. I think it would have to be a fall project. and the towns would often be at the hook for moving the moorings. If we ran into a budget crunch, it'd be Stevens and myself's mooring barge moving the moorings out of the way. So.
Okay. So about 250,000 to do that, and then with that, that would also be kind of going back through Area A, I think it is, right?
Yeah, I think Area A would have to be looked at again.
Yeah.
I think it's more. I think it's more scoured to the north, towards buoy number 9. If you're familiar with that area, there is good water there. It may be a thing where we resurvey it and maybe just shift buoys and maybe not have to dredge potentially. But it's it's a dynamic area. It changes almost every year, but that's something we can look at. I mean, it could be corrected today, not tomorrow. So that's something we have to look at. But I would love to not dredge it. I love dredging, but if we can not dredge it and get the rest of the river done, that would be great. Or maybe we dredge areas B and C, and then if we have money left over, then we brush up Area A when they leave, something like that. But if it's really, really bad, they're not going to bring barge equipment into that river if they can't get past Area A. They're not going to risk that. Probably not. So, but that's the risk we run. We can survey the river tomorrow, but that may change by March or July. So, right. But at least you have the historical data, and we do have the historical data from previous surveys of what's there in the shift in the sediment. So we do have a baseline of what material was there, what's there now. So we do have that, which is good. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I understand the river needs. I mean, your harbor needs. We have our harbor needs. Like I said, we're embarking on a $10 million pier project with the commercial fleet. It's going to be a wealthy project, but it's going to be a great project for us. We have really invested in Green Harbor since 1956 with our infrastructure. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit, but this is a project, that we should finish off project that we started. That's just how I feel.
Okay. Yeah. Any other comments from the board or questions from the board?
It just sounds late to consider a $250,000 request when I think Stephen's proposed budget's already in front of advisory, right? It's, I think it's late to even consider putting that on for this year's town meeting.
No, and Dave, good point. I mean, I think that this year we're out. This is something that we wouldn't at the earliest would be October 21, which would be fall special meeting for both towns.
Right.
Special town meeting would mean the money would be available if both towns had it approved. So It's not going to be dredging 2021. Well, we could, but yeah, we definitely invest the April town meetings, which that money is not available till July 1st anyway. But this would be a special town meeting vote for both towns October. And that will be even contingent on even getting the grant. There's no guarantee. We can submit and not get it, which means the towns wouldn't have to fork over any monies until we actually get the grant, which is a good placeholder. But I do feel the state is looking for valid projects. This is definitely one of them. And it definitely puts a cog in a wheel where two towns are working collectively. So, and it's also a phase 2 approach to finish something off that we started. So I do think we have good sentiments and arguments for our grant versus somebody else's. But like I said, at the end of the day, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees.
Understood. Yeah. Anyone else from the board? Any questions on that?
No, just to state, if I can. So Mike, thank you very much. Appreciate the information in this space. I thought that we looked at this right before the pandemic. I believe it was either fall of 19 or first quarter of 20 calendar, that is, not fiscal year, and got some numbers to not obviously touch anything in A, but to do the remainder of B and C. And I thought the number was closer to either 1.2 or 1.6. Am I imagining that, or was there a number thrown around closer to those?
I can't recall those numbers, but I can go back and look. But and even if it was, or I'm not requesting it, I wouldn't ask them no more than $1 million. And that's the part I said where if both towns supported $250 each, they graciously gave us $500,000, and we would go as far as $1 million would go. We would do the bids, push the bids out. If it came back 900,000 or 1.2, then we would back out of the depths to like +7 or +6 and go to -5. So the whole entire river was equally dredged versus having like a 7-foot spot, 5-foot spot. And that's how you would get to your number of $1 million versus digging one spot than the other. I mean, that's all. At that point, that's all you could do because you're not going to go back and get more money. So that's all you can really do at that point. Otherwise, you're at a phase 3, which, you know, that's phase 2 is hard enough to talk about.
So we'd be looking at doing this, Mike, sometime in not calendar. I'm going to talk fiscal year, probably fiscal year 23, right?
Yeah, fiscal year 22 next year.
So you're talking about doing it. So fiscal year 22 begins in fiscal 22 begins in 3 months. You're talking about doing it in the next 15 months.
Potentially, yes. Potentially.
Potentially. Okay.
Potentially.
So I can speak to.
We can wait a year as well. It all depends on the grant. Like the grants are due May 1st. You wouldn't know till probably August anyway. So if you wanted to dredge January 1st of 2022, you would both towns have to be sure they were allocated the money at town meeting to even dredge for 2022. Otherwise, it'd be 2023 or 23. I would be strongly against dredging the river in the summertime. Last time it worked out going very far, they were digging in the mountains, heading back out to sea, but barging down the South River in summertime, I don't think it's advisable.
Okay, so I'll certainly defer to the experts on the safety side and science. What I just want to bring to fore is from a financial point of view, which obviously is a consideration as we look at the projects. Our debt service is extremely high for the next 2 fiscal years, so it doesn't start sloping off until FY24. So if we add additional debt service without any really justifiable hope that there'll be a decrease in expenses over the next 2 years, we'd be looking at some type of rate increase to the user community, because $250,000, we don't have it in retained earnings, so it would be a debt service vehicle. My back of the napkin math comes in at about $20,000 a year for the town. So while that's obviously a small percentage of our overall budget, it is a tipping point for us for consideration on some type of revenue lever. So I just wanted to make the other members of the committee aware of that.
Thank you, Brian. All right, any of the comments or questions from the board on that? Quiet. Anyone from the audience get any participants feedback? If so, please raise your hand and I'll look for. I'm just trying to see if there's any.
There's no one right now. Looks like you're pretty good to go.
Oh, thank you, Seth. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. All right. So we wanted to have that on the agenda and we wanted to have discussion on it, but we cannot do any votes or anything on that because it's on the businesses. It's on the agenda as kind of discussion around the comprehensive dredge permit and old business, not as new business. But I would suggest that we look at this for the next meeting and include it onto new business. And then after you guys get a chance to think about it, ask some questions, then we can talk about maybe a vote on what we want to do and where the and discuss a little bit more on where the priorities are and kind of how we want to handle that.
Mike, I had a quick question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Craig. Yeah.
Mike DeMeo was talking about submitting a request made for in May. Are you doing that? Are you putting it in? Are you putting in some?
I did the last one. I'm not going to submit a grant on the town Scituate behalf on approval from you guys. Obviously, your board and powers to be. Mansfield is willing to do it. I'll write the grant. It's basically a dust off from the last one. It's not hard. The first one's already drafted, but I'm not going to submit any grants on behalf of Scituate without any official approval. So if this is something you guys are interested in at your April meeting, it's going to be a quick turnaround to get the grant in first. But if nothing's discussed in the next 2 months, then that's where it will lie. Like I said, Mansfield is supportive of it. I'm willing to do the grant for both towns if charged. I feel strongly about the project, but if your community is not and the town is not, then that's where it lies.
Okay, so we should be making a decision whether we're going to approve it or not at the next meeting. Is that?
Well, yeah. Yes, if it's due May 1st, have to submit it. Like I said, Craig, there's no guarantee that come September 1st that we're successful. It may take the next round of grants. They're very competitive, especially now with COVID and everything. I'm even shocked that these grants are even still available. The pandemic and money being pulled everywhere else, but I mean.
But if we approved it and you submitted it, then and it got approved, we would be on the hook for the 250.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. It would just be extended that the town didn't come up with a match, but I'm not
okay.
Work without any support from the town of Scituate. I mean, I would definitely want to have some kind of letter from the towns and town boards, and Mansfield would certainly do the same thing. But I'm not going to go off on a whim and get a grant on the town of Scituate and not support. That's not the proper way of doing business, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Mike, just a quick question. So from a Mansfield standpoint, you guys don't have money appropriated for this either, right? So you have to go to special town meeting as well for you guys?
Yeah, we would have to, absolutely. But talk to my town administrator. I'm going to brief it to my waterways for next Wednesday. And the town of Mansfield would back this program, this grant program. I mean, like I said before, if the town can spend 25 cents on the dollar to get dredging or any kind of thing, then but the thing too, Mike, is there's no guarantee that the town of Scituate would support the 250. There's no guarantee the town of Mansfield will support the 250. However, that's where the contingency comes in. If you don't, you're not spending it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It certainly looks better to have the grant awarded, and that way you've done your homework and say, look, we've got half paid for. We just need 25% from each town. I think it's an easier sell to say, hey, I need $500,000. It's like giving your kid $10 or $5. You know what I mean?
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
But like I said, I don't you guys have been great. I think Mansfield Scituate has worked well together. I know Brian Kelly's been on many Waterways calls, and I think to a point now that we've been way better since years past with communication and being on the same page. And if now's not the time for Scituate, that's fine. But it is what it is. Like I said, I understand you guys have your projects in the harbor. We have ours as well. We're working on Dredge for Green Harbor right now for the Dredge 2022 in concert with the Army Corps. So, I mean, we're trying to be progressive. So, but we don't have like a harbor use fee in Mansfield. Maybe in the future we will, but but right now we don't. But.
All right. Anyone else before we move along?
So the discussion and vote next month from my view, will be on at least two things, and that is a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the extension of the South River project, as Mike DeMeo is spoken. And then the idea that Steve Moans had suggested is that we should finish Scituate Harbor first. So is there going to be two different votes, or I'm just curious how that works? Is this one
really
or the other, or none?
It really depends on kind of how the board wants to make a motion, right? So if the board wants to make a motion for one or the other or both, right, then that's how we would vote it, right? But I'll keep I'll put it on the agenda as new business, and then I'll put dredging Salt River and dredging Harbor, and then, you know, we can talk a little bit about that and then figure out, you know, Stephen, you can talk about kind of where your priorities are at and what you want to do, and then you can vote on both if you want it. I'll take some direction from the board on which way you want to handle that.
And Dave Sinkowski, just so you know, I am not against dredging the South River.
No, I didn't suggest that in the least. I just you mentioned they're both very important. Obviously, it's just which one can you priorities and cost.
Yep. Correct.
Yep, I couldn't agree more.
Unless someone has a better way to handle it, I'll probably put both on and probably have the ability to vote on both next month, or we say we're going to vote on the river, and if we don't do the river, then the priority becomes the harbor.
Right. So Mr. Chairman, I mean, the only thing I would say is, so if you look in the Dredge Cove Parkway and those marinas, do you even have permits in hand to do those projects? Do you have all those permits in the harbor?
No, we don't. So one of the reasons that we're talking about this is because we've backed away from the comprehensive dredge permit, but we had some money that was still set aside for dredge permits. So the thought process was to go ahead and get some permits in place for the areas that are not permitted, like the inner harbor and those spots that he's talked about already. So using the monies that were for the permitting for that.
That money that's set aside, could that be used in the South River?
I don't really know if it could be used because it was set aside for permitting. Okay. Right, and that's actually the money that we're talking about for the South River. The South River is already permitted.
Right.
It's really just trying to, get money for the actual dredging itself.
Sure. Yep.
That is a good question, Craig. I'm not sure I really know the answer. Maybe Mr. Murray might have more input on that. Put him on the spot.
Mike, Rick had a drop at 8. I sent you a text on that.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't looking at my phone. All right, thanks. Yeah.
Sure.
All right, Mike, we're going to move along here, but if you could stay on for just the next section here, because I'm just curious if you...
Give you like 5 more minutes, Mike.
All right. Yeah.
That's a big day tomorrow morning. So.
Okay. So our next topic is small vessel management and access is what I termed it. And the 3 Daves that are on the committee working on this. I know I've gotten like 20 texts since we've been on there, so I haven't been able to read them all, but are you guys prepared to talk about that tonight? I know you had an updated document and we were talking about the sticker program, Jericho ramp parking, which was one of the reasons I wanted Mike to stay on, because I wanted him to talk about what he did from a parking standpoint, and then racking systems. So
I'm prepared to speak on the Jericho ramp tonight. The other 2, I think, will fall in behind this once we get this taken care of. If the other 2 Daves are on board with that,
we can adjust the order if you want, Mike, and while Mike DeMeo's still on, let Dave talk about the research that he's found out about the Jericho ramp anyway, and then let Mike. I know Mike DeMeo has spoken to us a little bit about what he's done for parking down in Green Harbor, I think it was. But if Dave Daphne wants to present first, that's fine.
Dave?
You got it. All right, so just a little, just want to do a little recap here. maybe about a year ago, we had some discussion at a waterways meeting, or there was discussion in regards to Brian Kelly and finances and monies and projections, revenue streams, added costs to Marina and or mooring patrons. And based on my volunteerism, I asked if before or during while those conversations are being had, should we not explore all avenues of revenue that perhaps we have in the harbor, and before we enhance access to non-paying users, let's get a grasp on what goes on in the harbor and how can we address that in a fair and equitable manner across the board. So everybody that enjoys the resource, that uses the system, is contributing to it for their use. So the first topic, that there's a number of things that the two Daves and I reviewed, one of them being the boat ramp. So I've done some homework on that. We've had discussions back and forth, texting, conference calls, so forth. So what I just want to do is, I guess it's important to know that we aren't suggesting rates or anything like that. We just, what I thought was important was to bring forth this particular item in the harbor, specifically what's being done with it now, what could be done with it. And then I think it's important that we hand it over to you as the committee to decide and discuss, present it to the selectmen as a suggestion, as an advisory committee, and then have it come back to the powers to be. So one of the things I've done is this, and by the way, this has been a subject since 2010. I found some paperwork on Waterways Commission discusses boat ramp fees. So back to 2010, this was a discussion. It was a healthy discussion that was had. It was batted around. It was prior to the boat ramp being improved or repaired. Chairman John Murphy spoke in favor of that, as did Mark Patterson. So it's been out there and it's been around. So presently we have 55 parking spots at the Jericho boat ramp. There are 43 designated for vehicle trailer, and there are 12 that are standard, which would be considered in the eyes of the state rooftop paddlecraft. So you would come in with your car with your rooftop paddlecraft and deploy from that ramp. Hang on here as I go through. Hingham Harbor has a boat ramp. It doesn't fall under fishing and boating access. They have a fee structure on that. There's a commercial boat ramp permit, and I believe that would be for boat haulers, but I'm not sure. I haven't been able to confirm that. But that's $200 a year, or a single use is $65. So if you were launching your own boat, well, it was a one-time deal, that's what it would be. Winthrop Harbor has 59 trailer, 21 cars. They charge a seasonal launch pass for a commercial hauler is $500. A season launch pass for recreational is $60. And there's a $5 per day if you were just going down for the day to launch. General access for Plymouth Harbor, they charge a fee. And these are fishing and boating access launch sites, all but the Hingham Harbor one. Plymouth is $100 for a yearly pass. It's $10 per day. They have 102 trailer spots and 15 vehicle. The town of Marshfield has has a 74 trailer, They charge 125 yearly pass, $250 for out-of-state pass, $10 per day event. The back river has 88 trailer spots. They charge a daily of a 10, a seasonal for 100. Commercial is 500. A commercial single lodge is 100. There's been questions in the past that raised in regards to whether or not we as a town can charge for those access events. Under the rules of fishing and boating access, it states that most boat ramps are open and free for charge for the general public. However, some heavily used sites authorized by the department to collect user fees in order to recover the cost of site maintenance and daily management. All sites which collect such fees must charge the same amount to all state residents, and facilities must be open to the boating public on equal terms. Unlike FBA sites, boating facilities acquired and constructed entirely with municipal funds may charge higher fees for out-of-town users or restrict usage to town residents. So I just want to put that to bed, that yes, it can be charged. Yes, it can be managed. Yes, the money can stay, not go to the state, but it can stay within the confines of the ramp.
Yep. So any money collected for parking or, you know, people launching there goes back to the improvement to the ramp and the parking lot itself.
Right. It stays, from what I can come up with here, it stays within the management of it. So if you had attendees there, if you had a harbor master, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but if you had a harbor master boat over at the dock and that person was overseeing that, perhaps they were making sure that the paddle craft that are being launched have their identification decals on them. Perhaps this is part of this whole thing of tying it all in together. Yes. Line painting, lighting, light bills, landscaping, maintenance to the walkout pier, pressure washing, sealer, maintenance, removal and installation of the ramp and docks and hoops, and all of those things can all go into it. In other words, you're taking it out of the big envelope or the big umbrella of the harbor, and it's segregated into this. The 12, that particular ramp and that particular setup can be used for paddlecraft launching because of the designation of the rooftop cars. However, it's unlawful to take a car with paddlecraft and park in a trailer only spot, because the whole idea is access, and it's designated that way. That site is a little bit over 1.25 acres, and I don't know if it can be redesigned and maybe to fit more, but anyways, as it is, I believe that the revenue that could be derived from that to offset maybe what's being already spent to maintain and take care of that is anywhere from $16,000 to $20,000 per year, based on the number of spots, based on 3 times the allowable space for a yearly pass, plus the daily activity that would go on. So I just want to ask questions as you will, but I'm pretty sure I covered everything as far as can we do it? Is it viable? Does it help us as a community with fair and equitable access to our waterways? Remember, I would say most of those people that come in there are, and you're going to see a big influx of it as we have last year, and you're going to see it this year with the amount of boats and no space to keep them in marinas or moorings. So it's something that to keep an eye on. So I think that's really all I have, unless the other 2 Daves have anything they want to add to that, or if you have any questions on, I'd be happy to answer them if I can.
No, Dave, I appreciate that presentation. It's one of the options of looking for ways to increase revenue towards the Waterways Enterprise Fund. And Mike DeMeo, you had presented, you know, your parking fee structure. What was the total revenue guys generate for that on a yearly basis about?
So we take in about $50,000. We sell about 275 annual passes. I raised the fees this year to $125 for annual permit, $10 daily. And you can only charge out of state folks 3-to-1 ratio. So out of state is $21 for daily, and the annual permit is $225. Believe it or not, we saw a handful of 225s. Those are like New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut that are chasing the tuna fish. They pay, they launch 24/7, and they can kind of come and go as they please. It got a lot to manage in years past. I put a parking meter in probably 4 years ago for about $11,000, all said, done, and in, and it paid off within 3 months. I think Scituate, at their boat ramp, the state paid for that boat ramp. It's a state public access boat ramp, and the town of Scituate is collecting no money. I know the harbor master would have to manage it a little bit. You have to kind of maintain it. Ours gets a little crazy the way it's laid out, and that's part of our $10 million pier plan to move things around, even move the boat ramp. So, yeah, I mean, you are losing money, but you got to realize you got to pay people to kind of oversee it, pay for the meter. You got to maintain the meter if you go that route. But like Dave said, you know, if you need the lines painted, the state could do it, or you could have a contractor paint it for $1,500, $1,000. The town could street sweep it. Our ramp, we have all LED lighting. The lights are great. We have cameras on the boat ramp, which is paid from the public access. You can also use funding from those foot fees to pay for salaries for people that are actually at the boat ramp. So it's a cost savings to the waterways. However, the money that is derived from the boat ramp has to stay to a public access account. It can't be mixed in with any harbor other funds, which is not a big deal, I would imagine, for you guys. But I mean, I would venture to say you're probably losing at a minimum of $15,000, $20,000 a year to the people that are using it. You know, it's not a lot of money added up over the cost of the years of, you know, putting new chains on the piers, moving the docks in, moving the docks out. All those budgetary things and operational things cost money. So even if you break even, you're doing better than you did in 2020, 2019. So something to consider. I would gladly help the town of Scituate with that, since I'm a resident of Marsh, Scituate. So I think you guys should look at it, and I would recommend you guys follow the same fee structure as I have, or even higher. I don't think it'll get higher than what we are. We're kind of the highest tier. But if you're the same price and I'm the same price, then no one can really bargain shop. So, I mean, Marshfield and Scituate have two dynamic areas to go fishing, very heavily sought after to Stowwagon Bank. Marshfield's 14 miles, Stowwagon Bank. Scituate's probably 16. Stowwagon Bank is the best tuna fishing in August, September, October. And, you know, this location.
That was a secret. That was a secret.
Yeah. Not a secret, David. That's never been a secret. Maybe your co-op spot's a secret, but no secret about Stowwagon.
Hey, I don't know what you're talking about.
Thanks a lot, Mike. That was good information, and it's to be considered at future meetings, Mike Gibbons, to decide if we want to go that way or not.
Yeah, and like that, Dave and Mike, I mean, I'll gladly share my revenue figures with you. You know, Jason Constantly came down, spent some time with me, and kind of showed me the operation, but we get pretty busy, and it does generate money, and we have probably the second busiest boat ramp in the state behind Newburyport. I know Plymouth is very busy too, but a lot of people that go to Plymouth actually come to Marshfield now, because Marshfield has direct ocean access, very similar to Scituate. 500 yards, you're in open ocean. If you're in Plymouth, you're 4 miles, you can get to the ocean. So, like I said, you know, and it's not really the boat ramp. You got to remember, you're bringing people in to come fishing. So hopefully they're buying fuel at our gas stations, our marinas, getting ice, buying bait, hitting our restaurants on the way out of town for stuff. So you kind of hope for those things, for trickle-down economics. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, in Marshall, we do see a lot of trailers at the local restaurants, getting lunch, getting ice, getting bait, buying tackle. So, you know, it's not just the town making money, it's also for all the town businesses as well. So that's something to think about as well. But I will caution you, you do have to kind of manage it. If you're going to force it and charge a fee, be prepared to manage it. So you have to do that. So that's all I have.
Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Mike. That was good feedback. So what I would say to the Daves is that I think it's really interesting. What I'd like to see is if you guys want to put together a proposal for the meeting and say, hey, this is what's going to cost to do it. You know, this is what we propose. We propose using this fee structure, and then we can put it to a vote, right? As long as we have a motion that we can work with to put it to a vote.
Right. And just remember that or keep in mind that our charge was to explore additional revenue streams.
Right.
Whether we personally or as a group believe we should or we shouldn't wasn't part of it. It was more about gathering the data, what was out there, and exploring it and saying, this is what's going on. And I'm not a big person about, oh, because this town does it, we should do it. What I am most concerned about is that Dave Dauphiny doesn't have to pay for somebody else to use the harbor. We're all in this together. We all use the harbor master's services when needed, and they're there for us for that. And it's fair and equitable access. There are other things that are going to come up in a discussion, which is, okay, now that they're charging there, what do we do about Cole Parkway?
Right.
Right. I don't know that there's designated spots there. I don't know that there's no parking there. All I know is there's a ramp there that's in pretty tough shape, and whether or not that's a launch and pull out ramp only, no parking type of thing, service type of thing, and then we roll on to the driftway. So this is a cost. We are very aware that this is a moving target, but I think we got to jump in somewhere, and that's why I wanted to start at Jericho, because that's the most prominent. If you're not going to spend $10 to launch a boat and you want to go hammer it down at Cole Parkway and figure that whole thing out, then good luck. I mean, you're going to earn.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to park in Cole Parkways anytime in the summertime. Now on the weekends, it's
what I don't want to do is we were very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to shift the population to somewhere else. Again, this being a pillar of what we're talking about, we can expand on kayak racks and parking, because that's where it should be happening as fishing and boating access sees it, and as that facility goes. I think what's more exciting is that we can take that facility, now that it's a revenue stream, and we can maybe project some projects to improve it. I don't know. You could do a vast number of things, but one being the kayak rack, or one being a kayak launch, or one being a ramp, a float down the middle of the ramp. So you're not playing off the boat, on the ramp, up the ramp, back to the parking lot. There's some easy flow and improvements going on there, lighting, maintenance, all those things. So I think it's good. I don't know the amount that should be charged. As Mike says, you have to be, most every one of these that I reviewed are the same. Commercial haulers are the same. It's a 1-year permit. Guys using that ramp, that's what it's used for. Is he making money doing his job? Sure he is. Is he paying into the overall? I don't know. That's something that as a group you guys would have to discuss. It's an option.
Yeah.
All right,
Anybody
Dave.
else have any questions on that?
Dave, thanks for that research, and Mike, you had it right on the head. We'll have to do more research to come up with a closer anyway to a proposal for the board to consider whether or not we go down that route or not.
Well, is that what you guys want? Do you want us to make that proposal, or is it something that you guys want to talk about before there's a proposal? It's not like there's a gun to our head, but
No, but there are still questions, Dave, that have to be ironed out. Like Mike talked about the management of it, and where the money goes, and a separate account, and there's some things that need to be ironed out before it even gets to a proposal.
I would just ask that we find a way to try to draw it to a conclusion, because we've been talking about this for 6-7 months, and it takes up valuable time in these meetings where we don't have hours to do this. So let's try to bring it to a point where it's going to either live or die, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Well, and I think at this point, what I would be looking for is from the commission, do you want us to take it to the next level? Is it something that you guys are in agreement with, that number one, it's something that needs to be looked at to the next step, and whether it's not, it's something that you guys think you want to propose, and if that's the case, then we'll work in that direction, I guess would be the best thing.
I'm in agreement. Move forward.
Yeah, I am too. So I kind of going to summarize this by saying, last time we talked last month, it was about kind of coming up with a priority of the 2 or 3 things we had, right? And then starting with one of the priorities and then just pounding through to a motion so that we can get something to the next step. So tonight we're talking about the ramp parking lot because that was the first one that we came up the agenda. But I would say if that's the priority of the 2 or 3 things that the group is working on, let's get it to a motion in the next meeting. I'll have it under the, the new business section so we can get it in motion on to move forward with that. And then, but we'll need, okay, it's going to cost us this, roughly this much, $11,000 for the meter, right? It's going to cost us this much for this there. Here's what we think we can do in revenue, and here's what we think the long-term payback is. And then we can make a motion to take a vote on it, right?
Okie dokie.
So Mike, can I just jump in with a couple of questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Mike DeMaio, thanks very much. Appreciate the information. A couple quick questions. Do you, for want of a better word, overbook the number of permits you sell to the number of spaces that you have, or is it a 1-to-1 ratio?
So when you come to the ramp, it's a first come, first serve. There is no pecking order if you have an annual permit or not. Typically, the people that launch 4 o'clock in the morning are come and gone. A lot of those people have the annual permit. They have like 10 years of annual permits on the trailer post. So those are all checked. You do try to get some people try to sneak in and put a magnet on the annual permit, so you get people like that. But for the most part, it's pretty legit. It's and the thing is, if you don't have a parking permit on your dashboard, you're issued a $50 ticket. In years past, we used to do a courtesy notice where if you launched 4 o'clock in the morning, the assistants would give you a courtesy notice in the morning, right when they came in at 8 o'clock, and they would walk the lot. But it took 2-3 guys to manage that. And then if they didn't pay within 7 days, I would mail out citations to them, right? And then you lose all the revenue. So you don't necessarily have to have a parking meter. It makes things easier. I know it's an upfront charge, but when you break it out over the years, what it costs for salaries, it's actually a cost savings. So it does work. And sometimes the meter does go down. You have to buy paper for it, and sometimes it goes offline. So those are things you have to manage. But I will say, when it's well known that you're issuing citations to launch and you don't pay for you launch, we've had many people call the police station 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to say, hey, the parking meter's not working. I just want to let you know. I don't want to get a citation. So it does work once the word is out. But
Mike, the question was, if you have 10 trailer spots, what do you sell? 30 annual permits? You said 3-to-1?
We sell 275 a year. And sometimes you do have a line to use the ramp, but that gets to the management part of it. You know what I mean? Like there's no pecking order just because you have an annual permit and the other guy is buying a daily permit. There's no pecking order for that. You can't even manage that. But
no, but so you sell. The question is, how many annual permits do you sell based on compared to the number of total spots? Was that your question, Brian?
Yes.
We have like 77 trailer spaces. We sell 250 to 275 annual permits a year.
So 3 or 4 times.
Right. Okay.
And we probably have over 3,000. We have over 3,000 single launches.
And what do you do?
The meter gives you all of that.
Mike, what do you do if all 77 are full and people show up that have permits? Is it too bad, so sad? What is it?
People wait in line. That's why we have 2 or 3 assistants in line that manage the line. They help them with the boat stuff. They help them get them out of the water, especially during storm. So they do help them kind of push them along to get them out of the water and get them in the water. But if there's a line, then people wait in line, no different than waiting traffic. And then it's 1 in, 1 out. That's all you can do. So,
okay.
And it's always worked. Yeah. Sometimes you have people try to cut the line, but the Marshall ramp has 3 ramps. So if we get periods of bad weather, we'll have 2 ramps for people coming out, 1 ramp for people coming in, just to get the people out of the water because you don't want 40 boats speeding through the anchorage. But
Mike, I think the question is, what happens when the parking lot fills up?
When the parking lot fills up, you have to manage it. You have to have someone in there playing referee, directing traffic, allowing 1 boat in, 1 boat out. That's what you have to do.
Okay, so if someone has a permit and the parking lot's full, they can't launch because they have no place to park.
Well, they should have got there an hour early then.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got the answer. It's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think launching,
That's
the
the
launching
answer. There's no reserve. You're dealing with a state public access ramp. Just because you have a permit doesn't mean you have a right to park there. It's no different than going down to Front Street or CVS parking there. It's a spot. Well, guess what? There may not be a spot on Heritage Days. So what do? You go park somewhere else. Sorry, but that's just what it is. I mean, the people that want to fish early are there and gone. And the people that are there on weekends, they come in 10 o'clock and they fish and they go out with their families. And the fishermen are usually back in by 2. So it does turn over, but that's where you have to manage it and have staff down there, 20 spots out, and keeping good order is what it is. But it's
I see a major problem with the Jericho Road. It's a remote parking lot. You're going to have the harbor master go over there all the time. I mean, it's not like Green Harbor where you're right in that parking lot. All your people are in that parking lot. This is remote. There's no one there.
So I don't think we should get into this detailed discussion about the pros and cons of it. Well, let the committee present the financials and a suggested management, and we'll bring Steve Moen into it and maybe the police department into it to see for next month we can have a more detailed discussion. Is that okay, Mike?
Yeah, so real quick, and I'll wrap up. But Craig, back to your question is, the harbor master doesn't have to come by boat. That's Steve's purview if he wants to do that. Our boat ramp has a little house down there where the kids can get out of the sun as a little ticket office. Or you have like a little beach buggy or ATV to sit down there. Well, the assistant goes there for 4 hours or 6 hours by car and manages a ramp. You don't have to have a harbor master or police boat there directing traffic at the boat ramp. You have to have that. We certainly don't have that. Yeah, we have the luxury of having it close to our office, but I have 2 or 3 guys down there sometimes if it gets busy, and they rotate out and do 4-hour shifts and go get water and things like that.
Okay.
Somebody raised a hand there, Mike.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board before we move to the audience?
Nope.
All right. Let me see if I can unmute Mr.
He is unmuted.
Jack Zakauskas.
Jack. Thank you, Jack. Yeah.
51 Colonel Mansfield Drive in Scituate. Just a real quick point. We pay for beach stickers in Scituate as well. That does not guarantee us a parking spot. And you can go to the beaches and find all the parking spots taken, and you're not guaranteed a spot to park. So just by comparison, it's a similar situation that you're talking about with the stickers for parking for the boats.
Yeah, great analogy, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mike, if I could, let me go back through my memo if I can. Thanks a lot, Mike, and Dave D for that initial research presentation on the parking. Last month is that okay, Mike? Can I continue?
Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So last month when I presented this, waterways revenue enhancement and paddlecraft access memo, the group actually suggested we reorder it and put the revenue enhancement last. So that was just our initial thought.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I just reordered this thing, and number one clearly was to reduce the cost to first responders caused by the significant increased use of paddlecraft on the Scituate Waterways. And the answer to that was very simply use more stickers on kayaks and paddlecraft. The stickers are free. They're just not being used for the most part at all. And so the number one here is increase the use of stickers. We can require it. We can choose to require it without any real enforcement. And it's just a matter of marketing the heck out of these stickers. So as Rick Murray said last time, the commission isn't in the business of marketing. It would have to fall on Steve Moen's office and Steve Moen to market it with the help of the town infrastructure with emails and things like that. So these are just some suggestions we came up with. Certainly continue giving them out at the harbor master's office, publicize the importance of this, through repetitive townwide emails, emphasizing that the stickers are free. We can have them at town hall. They're mailable to anybody who requests one. We can post signs at the launch points. They're free. And we can just put boxes of them at these launch points. The Maritime Center, Driftway Park, Jericho Ramp, you know, to make sure that people use them. And Dave Sinkowski's suggestion, which I encourage, and it's put some either seasonal help down there at these launch points to educate people and give out the stickers. Another thought came up is have them on the harbor master boats, and when you run into somebody on the waters, possibly put it on right there. I mean, I know it's the kayak could be wet, but typically the top part of the kayak isn't wet. You might be able to do it there. So that was number one. And does anybody have any comments on that? Yeah. Those suggestions?
I do. Dave.
Good.
Just want to let you know, we give out hundreds of those stickers throughout the summer. Yep. It's not like they're not being given out.
Okay.
So, we do give them out. We do advertise it. We put it on our Facebook page throughout the summer.
Okay.
We, send it out through our Instagram account as well.
Yeah.
I just ordered a few boxes from the Coast Guard. Yes, they don't cost us anything, but I kind of took a little bit of offense to the statement that we don't give them out. We do.
No, I know you do.
We're giving out an awful lot of them.
Right.
More than you.
We want it to be complete. We want every kayak in Scituate or every canoe or paddle, what do you call it?
Paddlecraft. Yeah.
Paddlecraft to have one. And so it has to be a town-wide marketing campaign, not just the harbor master's office, but like you need a tag for your dog, you need a sticker for your dump, to go to the dump. If you're going to use a kayak in Scituate, and I know Mike has left, but we'd almost encourage Marshfield to do the same. You need a sticker on your paddlecraft. It's that simple. And these are just some supporting ways to encourage to require their use.
I think Marshfield does more or less the same as we do. They put it on their Facebook and they have a stack of them in the office. But like you mentioned, most kayakers don't go to a harbor master office. They're not going to Facebook to see what's going on. So we have to, what we're doing is good, but we have to do better. We have to find other ways to reach the public.
And I would agree. I mean, trying to do more. We're just trying to figure out different ways that we can get those stickers on more paddlecraft, right? Some people were talking about, do we make it mandatory even though we can't enforce it, right? We call it mandatory and try to drive that campaign that hopefully people call and get a sticker sent to them, right? So they can put it on their paddlecraft before they go out or stop by and get it. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, it could be, we drive emails or calls to the harbor master's office and they get recorded, and maybe I know Ellen and obviously during the season we're very, very busy in that office. Maybe there's a seasonal employee that just is mailing stickers to people. That's simple. Of course, they could stop by the office, and that's less convenient than just mailing it to their house and having boxes of them in like a sort of a, I envisioned a sort of like they have in the trails where you sign in, just a box that you open it up and the stickers in there with a Sharpie or a couple of Sharpies, and people can just fill it out and put it on their boat.
Good idea too. Steven, any other thoughts on that?
No. Okay. I'll do whatever you guys want. I just, we are doing it. We are giving them out. But if there's a way to if you guys come up with a way that's going to work to get more out there, that's fine with me.
So just if I comment. Yeah, it's just I just want to swing it back into what our charge was, which was revenue possibilities within the harbor. One of the discussions that we had was whether or not paddlecraft should be registered in the town of Scituate. Along with the paddlecraft registration would be the owner information that would go on an ID decal that would go on the paddlecraft, and everything would work together. I'm not ready to discuss the revenue part of this whole thing. And basically, I don't want it to turn into an invitation for more non-contributory users of our waterways. We're trying to get things in a box and get them squared away. So I think the discussion on the stickers, there's ID stickers and then there's registration stickers, and where are we going with that? When we handle the boat ramp, that's going to give us an avenue for parking and rack that we can discuss, and it moves along. So I think, although the discussion last month was importance of what's going on, it's about tying everything up. And I think the first thing was this ramp. And then, you know, we as the committee need to discuss furthermore on paddlecraft and the other items that we earmarked as possible collection of revenues.
Understood. Yeah.
Mike, like you had asked, you know, if you want our office to mail stickers out, we can do that. It's not a problem. They are available in the office. If you want to have a box set up and, you know, down at the boat ramps, we can set up a box and fill them full of stickers and Sharpies. And if you want me to station people down at the ramps, I can do that.
I mean, just an idea. You brought that up, Mike. That's a good idea. But I mean, when you send out the invoices, you can include one of those, just one, because I think most people who have boats also have a kayak. I mean, just an idea.
Fran has his hand up too, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to kind of add to what Stephen said. I know they give out hundreds, and as a launch operator, we give out hundreds, and the business association gives out hundreds. If we had a kayak for every one of these stickers that we're giving out, there should be 1,000 kayaks in Scituate Harbor. There's no loss of availability on these stickers. And one other thing you should realize, kayakers don't use the ramps. They do not use launching ramps. You won't find a kayaker at it. You'll find him off on some other place where they can walk down over a beach or the rocks or whatever. So it'd be kind of hard to do much with kayakers at the ramp.
They definitely use that Driftway Conservation Park ramp. I know that, Fran.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I should have said. I'm looking at Cole Parkway or
right.
Jericho Road.
Yeah, I think Conservation Park would be, you know, job one. The majority of them are there.
I would agree.
So, Mike, do we want to take a vote or make a motion to encourage the harbor master to take some of these actions?
You're going to have to tell me what actions, you know, you're going to have to really tell me what you want me to do. If you want me to put boxes out there, if you want me to have seasonal staff down there, not just throw it in my lap and say, figure it out, and then criticize or tell me I'm doing it wrong. Tell me what you'd like me to do, and I can do it. It's not an issue at all. And I'm not, you know, I just want you to know, I don't have a problem with any of this, but I need some sort of direction, just so I'm doing it correctly.
Yeah. So Dave, what I would recommend, just like we're kind of doing for the parking, right? Let's put it on next month, right? And just write up a quick blurb so that when we get to next month, here's the ask of the, you know, of the Harbor Masters Department. Here, we want them to market it. We want them to go, you know, on weekend mornings down to the conservation ramp and the driftway. And, you know, we want to install three sticker stations, one there, one at the Jericho ramp perhaps, and maybe another spot where we think people launch them. Have a handful of actionable items that are on there, and then bring it to the board as, hey, here's the motion, and then we can take a vote on it as a recommendation to the Harbor Master's office, and then boom, it's done, and it's on to the next.
All right, that's fine. Yep, that'd be good for the April meeting.
Well, I think if I can add on to that, we've talked about Eagle Scout projects in the past, and perhaps this doesn't fall under revenue or what our group was charged with, but perhaps it's a needed project, which it is, and can it tie into something else possibly when we get down that road? but maybe it's an Eagle Scout project that puts out some sort of works on a program to do something like that. Maybe that might be more in line, but I think it's something we can discuss further down the road. Just a thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
or they could even build those little boxes, you know, with the 4x4 and a little box to put the stickers in, and
or the signage
with the sign on it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you guys decide at the next meeting what you want accomplished from my office, that would be great.
All right, good. And then moving on to number 2, it was increased access to the waterways for paddlecraft, like other towns have, and that turned into the proposal for some racks. And Dave Sinkowski, if you want to take this, you can. I could talk about it, whatever you'd like.
No, I mean, I think, well, you had a walk around with Andy. Maybe you should talk about that. And
all right.
Yeah.
So, I did, Andrew and I met at Conservation Park.
Dave Friedman.
Yes.
Dave Friedman.
Yes.
Does this have to do with revenue?
It does not have to do with revenue at all, Dave.
So this is not part of our committee, correct?
No, it was, because they did talk about increasing safe access for.
Well, why would you sit on a committee that was put in charge of revenue enhancement and revenue exploratory, and then turn around and increase public access with no charge to the waterway? I'm just trying to figure this out.
It was a broader access, Dave. It wasn't only revenue.
Right.
Revenue was one of the things, and I know that was the most important thing from your.
That's what our committee was charged with. So you're on your own with this one. I have no part of this.
Okay. Right. Very, very good.
That's fine. So it was the idea that racks are a good thing because it does give more people access, safe access, and it did have some revenue because you charge for this a small amount of revenue, but you would charge for the opportunity to leave your kayak on a rack. If we only have 20, it doesn't generate a ton of revenue, but maybe we have 50 some year down the road. So we thought we'd start with a pilot program with a proposal for 2 racks, one at the Conservation Park, and we met with Andrew to see if he thought, and again, this isn't speaking for conservation, but the idea that possibly a rack could go up somewhere on that controversial area that now is opened up to trailer parking. And Andrew thought that possibly a rack, we had just tentatively put a little highlighted area right on the first 2 parking spots, across from the first 2 parking spots on that controversial area, maybe a rack that could hold up to 12 or 14, something like that, depending on the size, kayaks. So that would be one area. And the other area, and I'm not as familiar with the Maritime Center area to the right of towards the walkway, to the right, away from the Boatworks travel lift site, the right side of the building. We thought possibly another low-lying rack could go there somewhere, not on that sensitive grass that conservation was upset about, but somewhere along that area. That's really the proposal, to possibly put 2 racks in those areas and do a lottery and charge maybe $125 for the year or something. And there was a nice sign that Marshfield had for that you have to lock your kayak. It's your responsibility. If anything happens to it, it's completely at your risk. That was basically the proposal.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm curious to see what the board thinks about kind of those 2 locations.
No comments.
No comments.
And we would have to take a motion to see if we wanted to pursue this, to see if, and Dave and I would go in front of conservation with a proposal for that rack. And then, you know, we own obviously the Maritime Center, to see if you'd like us to pursue either an Eagle Scout or a VOTEC project to build the rack, install the rack, do some signage, and, you know, possibly build, as we just talked about, a box for stickers.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good idea to move forward. And I'm going to say the same thing I said before. If you're ready to make that motion, right, let's make it for the next meeting. I'll have it on new business. We can take a vote on it and then take it from there. I don't think I can do a vote on it tonight because it's under the old business stuff where we're still talking about it. I'm not sure if I can do that or not.
That's fine. Dave, and Andrew, I'll ask you, what would you need from us to go in front of conservation?
Yeah, I brought it up this week with the group. They're definitely open to a proposal. I think we just need to have sort of, you know, numbers and specs in the rack, location, that kind of thing, just details on where it would go and what it would look like.
Did they like the idea where we had talked about?
I think generally, yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Great.
Yep.
All right, so we'll come back to you next month, Michael.
Yep, so I'm going to put it on for new business for next month. I'm going to put all three of those on, right? So we can just work towards motions. If you want to talk before the next meeting, I'll help you kind of word some motions. Then we can kind of have discussion on it and then move to a vote and see if the board's in favor of moving forward or not. So.
Okay, great.
Okay. Any other comments? Great. Any other comments or feedback from the audience or the board? I do not see any hands raised. So with that, thank you. And I'm going to move to our financial update from Brian Kelly.
Okay, we'll try to move this thing along quickly because I know everybody has a busy night, I'm sure, ahead of them. So a couple of housekeeping things very quickly. Nancy and I communicated back and forth last week, this week. Two of our bonds were callable, had higher interest rates, 2008 and 2011 bonds. So we were able to refinance them. The savings isn't a lot of money, but it certainly every penny counts. So it's about $13,000 over 4 years, which is the remaining life on these. So this year it'll be about $4,000 savings on our debt service. Represents about less than 1% of our total debt service. So it's not a whole heck of a lot, but just as an FYI. Secondly, the insurance for the boats came in, Stevens Boats, on as a new one. So our insurance will go up a bit until Stephen is able to offload one of the other boats at some point. Even then, we still will have an increase. It's not huge. I think the new cost on the Calvin Beal is about $5,500 a year on insurance. And that will be offset by, I think, about $2,600 on one of the other boats when we move off. So the net there'll be about a $3,000 increase there. So those are just two minor housekeeping points that I wanted to bring up to folks. One of the, what I'm supposed to be chatting about this evening is, was Nancy able, rather in the dive that Nancy and I and Stephen participated in, were we able to determine any information on the variable swings year over year of the $25,000 on the mooring revenues. And unfortunately, the data that Nancy provided, and I'll go to share it with people, it's still a work in process. So let's see if I can do this correctly. Get that down there, share screen. And I believe it's this one. So I think people can see this.
Yep.
Okay. So if we take a look at lines 22 through 24, you'll see the swings that I'm talking about from 17 through 20. 21, it's really obviously, we're in process of collecting that. And we'll see the swings back and forth. Unfortunately, all this really is gross payments received in those months. It doesn't dive deeper than that. So this information, while helpful, really isn't going to give us the root cause of the reason that we have this $20,000 odd swing year over year. So plan B on this was to then move over to find out if there's a way in mooring info systems, if we can do a data dump, potentially down to an Excel, create a pivot table of all the payments, which will then give us a year over year. We'll be able to then exclude the commonality ones, and that will give us the outliers and show us that. Sounds pretty simple. However, we made a changeover in 19 from QuickBooks to Mooring Info, and Ellen was started to research earlier this week whether or not we have a full set of data in 2019 to be able to do 2019 to 2020 comparison, which you can see is about $26,000 or so. $21,000, I'm sorry, $21,000 or so. So we don't have anything now. Hopefully next month we'll be able to give the board a little more information, but this is truly a needle in a haystack type of thing. We have been at it now for a few months. I'm hoping that we can come to fruition before people start putting their boats on moorings in May and have some type of idea if this is going to be an up year or what the root cause of this is.
Okay.
That being said, I don't know if anybody has any questions on that particular field or if they want to look at anything else. I'll gladly send this out to the board members later this week once I finish with Nancy on some of the other questions on this area. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that's pertinent on this. The one key thing is we did have a DACA uptick, as you can see on this line. That while if you just look at year to date or fiscal year, it looks like that's nice. It went up a little bit, but really we haven't realized any of the DACA revenue for May and June in 21. So our 21 projections for DACA should be somewhere, I mean, for the overnight tie-up, that revenue should be somewhere around 35, maybe $38,000. So that's certainly a nice uptick on that.
Yep.
Okay. So the last item down here on this one is on Scituate Boat Works on our lease. We're running behind on this one right now because of the fact that the agreement between SBW and the town is that they pay a set fee of $100,000 that's paid quarterly, and then we share in revenue above a certain threshold. We share in 3%, and they pay us in 2 tranches, and those are after they had an audit. Their audit's done. So they're just finishing an audit right now. So we anticipate a payment in March, and there'll be another payment this fiscal year. It'll be backed up probably to June, but we should be on track to be somewhere in the 150, 160 range on that as well. So overall, our numbers look promising for this year. We should hit what the targeted numbers were on the revenue side. I've asked Nancy to also provide to us expense numbers as well, although the real expense numbers aren't going to start kicking in until May, but at least we can project some of them out and see where we are on that. And I potentially can give people an update on that next month. So that's on that. And then I think there was one other issue on this. Let's see. Nope, that was the mooring stickers. Going back to the agenda. Mooring Systems database. So by that one, Mike, are we talking about pulling the data, financial data from, or is there something else in Mooring Info database?
I think what we were talking about when we added that on was that although we've had the Mooring Info Systems database in place now for a couple of years, that there was still some shortcomings in how it's been used to collect the billing and tying the system together, I think is what you had said. So we said to add it on here so we could talk about kind of.
Correct. So on two fronts, there's two pieces of, and I don't mean to speak for Stephen on this one, but there's two pieces of information that we did not have last year that we will have this year. Because of, we were in the onrush and early stages of peaking on COVID. There was conversations last year about potentially the marina not opening on time, et cetera. There was no requirements for people to submit documentation for slips or moorings in 20. That's changed in 21. So everybody has to supply all the information that they have in the past, with the exception of 20, which will allow us then to start the comparison in mooring info systems. The flip side is Stephen he began the process. This is on the second point. Stephen began the process late boating season 20 of trying to complete an inventory in the harbor on the moorings. And Stephen, maybe I can bring you in and you can comment back on what the process is to move forward to get the database accurate, whether it's just concentrating on the inner harbor or the outer harbor first, or what your plans are on the mooring sides.
I think our plan is going to be this year to start earlier in the year and start in the inner harbor and try to get that squared away and try to get all the information we need into mooring info. And then depending on when that's completed, we'd move to the outer harbor, maybe to get as far as the Jericho boat ramp on the going out of the harbor on the left-hand side, and then just continue to work our way out.
So just so I'm clear, so that is collecting the information on what mooring is where. Is that what it is?
Yeah, go out and actually verify mooring locations and the boat information to make sure it jives with what's in mooring info.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So it is a process, and you have to go out multiple times because sometimes the boats may be there and sometimes they're not.
Right. Okay. We get someone that's raised their hand. Do we want to take questions now, or?
Sure.
Fran?
Yeah, just a quick question. On Docwa, what does Docwa charge the town for the actual use of their system? Is it a monthly fee or an annual fee, or how do they do that?
Fran, it's an annual fee now. They were doing it, I believe, on a percentage originally, but they've gone to an annual fee. If you want to stop by the office tomorrow, I can find out for you. I don't have that information in front of me right now.
Okay, no, I can do that. I don't need the information. I was just curious because I know they do charge an overall fee besides the credit card processing.
Yeah, I mean, when we started a couple of years ago, this discussion, and they came in to present, I want to say it was like 12 grand a season or a year.
No, that would be mooring info.
Okay, thank you.
All right, back to Brian.
I gave you what I got, Michael.
Okay, so that was it. I wasn't sure if you were done with that, so I was just saying. So I just knew that we had that on there because you said that there was some issues you were trying to address with it and you were working through it. So it sounds like some of it is just getting that information put in then, right?
That's correct.
A quick question for Brian and maybe for the board. I don't know if it was last month or before, because we had Howie in the conversation. I floated the idea that we might want to add a line to the reporting on the numbers where we would break out the South and North River separately so that we had some idea where our revenues came from. We spoke to Nancy Holt and she mentioned that wouldn't be a problem moving forward. So if the board thinks it brings value, we should probably act on it.
I'm sure we can do that. I don't think we have to take a vote on it. I'll certainly ask Nancy for that and put it as a sub on the overall revenue breakout that we, let's see, do I have anything handy here?
Right now, it's just one number all grouped together, and as far as the the North River and South River, it's never quite understood. Well, it's understood, but it's not in front of you to see. That's all.
So let's see. So you're talking about on this field that we share, you would like to see on mooring fees and water marina use fees for the rivers? Because I don't think you're going to be able to break it down on boat excise tax, etc.
No, I only suggested mooring fees, but I can see why water usage fees would also be necessary.
Yeah, I mean, when you at the end of the day, when you look at it, it's really it's the big numbers are slip fees, mooring fees, and marina use fees, right? On our revenue side, and obviously the lease income that comes from SBW and the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard really is, or NOAA actually, and that money from NOAA is really negligible. So it's really SBW. So breaking down the mooring and marina use fees, I'm sure we could, the water fees, I'm sure we could do that.
Yeah, if you can do that, Brian, that's great. Dave, I don't think we need to do a motion or anything on that as long as Brian can get that information. So
great. Thank you.
And I think it's good information, so that we can break that out and see that.
I think the board in 5 years when we're gone will appreciate your efforts.
Good point.
So the takeaway is that the board doesn't appreciate efforts now, David, right?
You got it on the first guess.
Okay then.
All right. Anyone else from the board or public have anything that they want to bring up? Because we're at the end of the agenda.
This is Paul Manning of 64 Moreland on Third Cliff. And I do have a question in regards to the dock walk. My understanding right now it's for dock space only, but there is consideration of including moorings. And my question to the commission would be, if that's done, what is the impact going to be on people who are on the wait list for the 35 and 40-foot buoys?
Is that a Stephen Moan question?
Yeah,
that's more of a waterways question.
Well, DACWA has no impact to it for the moorings, right? So I think if I'm going to boil this down, I think what he's asking for is if we take 3 moorings and move them as Scituate town moorings for use for transients, right? How does that impact the people that are on the mooring list itself?
That is correct. That's the nature of my question. And if it's more than 3 or 4, it becomes a revenue source. Are people who are on the wait list just never going to get a buoy or never get a mooring? Is the concern I have. Yes.
So I'll let Stephen answer, but I think it is 3 or 4 that we've targeted. 3. Okay.
Yeah, it's 3. So it would just those 3 would not go back into the general group to be given out.
And if it's a success, would you then look to get another 3 and possibly 5 and increase that number annually?
This is
I can jump in on that one. So Paul, all the other towns surrounding us have a small complement of moorings, whether it's Plymouth or the other surrounding towns have this. And when these conversations began, it was about helping the economy of downtown Scituate, especially at times when COVID was going on, to help the restaurants and other folks and encourage visitors to come into Scituate. And the initial target number was 5. We're starting with 3. which has been discussed, reviewed in a number of other meetings, and I believe it went all the way to the Board of Selectmen, correct, Michael?
That's correct, yeah.
And approved by the town administrator. The long-term, as far as, and I can't speak for all the other members of the waterways, but the long-term goal was never to obviously go out and acquire a large number. Instead, it was done to operate similar to our surrounding towns and to help drive additional business for the merchants in Scituate. So that number was targeted at 5, and right now we're sitting at 3.
Yeah, that's a good way to answer. We did not, the scope of it was nothing larger than 5. It was up to 5.
Correct.
And that would be predominantly of the 35 and 40 foot range for moorings?
No, we didn't. We actually didn't get moorings that big. None were turned in that size. There just aren't very many, you know, those people kind of hold on to them.
Okay, well, thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else from the public have any questions for the board or anything to bring up?
Just so Paul knows, I think the moorings that we have acquired are 35 or less, like 34 footers. 34 is the biggest one I think we have.
Okay.
And the other ones might be 30s. You know, I could check. If you want to call the office, Paul, I can find out for you.
Okay, thank you.
Bill Donovan has a question.
Good evening. Can you hear me fine?
Yep. Please state your name and address for
Bill Donovan, 11 Doctors Hill Drive, Scituate.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, hi. Hello, good evening. I've been impressed with your meeting. The first one I've sat in the whole time. There's a lot that goes on. You people are to be commended.
Thank you.
I have a question for Steve Moe. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
I saw the fireboat, a fine looking vessel, and Journey's End. They actually brought my boat down. As you know, I have a backhoe from Rockland, Maine. And I want to just tell you a quick story. When I took delivery, this is my first boat that was a single inboard diesel. And I took delivery down Boston Yacht Sales down at McDougal's down in Falmouth. And part of the delivery process was going out using the boat. And I had a real eye-opener. A single inboard diesel, when it comes to docking and tight maneuvering, it's altogether different. It was an eye-opener. Now, my boat, fortunately, has a bow thruster and a stern thruster. But the captain from Boston Yacht Sales that was with me, I said, let's go in and try docking, because it's altogether different. Because someday a thruster, a bow or a stern thruster will not work. And he started explaining and demonstrating the backfill method, backing up. And the boat, it's altogether different. And I'm just wondering, and I've been practicing now for 2 or 3 years, but I get lazy. It's so easy to hit those buttons for the thrusters that you may not, really come up to speed like you should. And I'm just wondering about the staff down there. Have you anticipated this or the training? Because maybe the new boat won't be as difficult as my boat is because you have a full keel. But have you given any thought to the training of the staff down there running that boat?
Yeah, I'm going to start out myself, Mike Bierce. We're going to start operating the boat right away.
Yep.
And then we're going to bring in probably Rich Kelly and Bob Greek, get them up to speed on it.
Yeah.
And then we're going to slowly train all the staff on that boat, operating it, docking it, running it. I went up and ran the boat in Maine. The boat handles very well. It tracks very well. I was actually, I could not believe how well it steered and how tight of a circle you could make just by, running the rudder all the way over. So I was pretty impressed by it.
Yeah, I think you'll find that, when it's in forward gear, it's fine. You have a big full keel on that. which is very nice. It'll track. But my point was when it comes to docking, it's down where my slip was down at McDougal's in Falmouth. There were a lot of like mega yachts, 80, 90, 100-foot yachts, and I was going by them in a brand new boat, new to me. You say, whoa, you know. Fortunately, the thrusters kept working. It was not an issue, but it's like when you're docking a boat, going in reverse against the wind. And there is a way, they call it the backfill method. You turn the wheel hard to port, hard to starboard. You can, if you're proficient at it, you can dock the boat. But it is a big learning curve. And like I said, I get lazy at times where I don't practice it like I should. It's so much easier to just push the buttons, you know?
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Feedback, Bill. It is clearly different.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm. All right, anyone else from the audience? Anyone got any questions or comments? If we don't, I would say I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
And because of COVID and we're in a remote meeting, we actually have to take a vote, a roll call vote, even on adjourning the meeting, believe it or not. So I don't believe Rick is.
Mike,
yeah.
Mike, if it doesn't pass, do we have to stay on?
Just you, Brian.
I thought that was the kind of funniest thing, but they said you had to actually have that to adjourn the meeting. And I think Alicia will say the same thing. But I thought it was kind of funny, but they said, yeah, in case there was someone wanted to adjourn the meeting and other people didn't, for remote meetings like this one here, it is part of the protocol. So
okay.
Rick Murray, I don't believe is still on. I think he had to jump off.
He's adjourned.
He's adjourned already, right? Brian Kelly?
Do I say adjourn or do I say yes?
You say aye, yes.
Aye.
And Howie is not here. Mr. Friedman?
Aye.
Dave Sinkowski?
Aye, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Craig?
Aye.
And let's see here, Stephen?
Aye, it was a pleasure seeing all you guys tonight, by the way.
And Mike Gibbons is an aye, and I think that was everyone that's here. So